big hope. A coronavirus vaccine for all and treatments for the sick.
There are lots of infected cells.
That's great. Well done.
Really good.
Hundreds of vaccines and drugs are being tested around the world in record time.
What we're trying to do is to take something that usually takes 15 years and truncate it down to a few months.
We all have questions, and some of you send us yours. When can we expect a vaccine? Who will get it first? How much will it cost? And here's one from us. Do we need a vaccine to get back to our normal lives? COVID-2, the coronavirus that causes the disease COVID-19. But a vaccine and the right drugs can help our bodies fight it. So this is what we're up against. The virus has a crown of spikes made of protein molecules. They attach to human cells and act like a key by mimicking a small part of the virus.
We would take a little part of that protein surface of the virus, killing the virus, and we would inject it into people to see if they would make antibodies to it. If that real virus came in, then the antibody would immediately recognize it and it would immediately take care of it.
But there are different ways of making a vaccine. Some labs are taking the more traditional route. They're testing whether introducing different parts of the spike protein into humans can trigger an immune response. But this sort of protein-based vaccine typically takes years to develop because scientists have to grow the protein and test it safe. So other labs are working on a different strategy that's never been done before. It involves copying a small section of the virus's RNA genetic code and injecting that into a person. That RNA fragment then instructs human cells to reproduce certain coronavirus proteins, and hopefully that triggers an immune response. Using the RNA approach means you don't have to grow the coronavirus protein in a lab.
Welcome to Watch Global Movies channel. Wish your family make yourself happy and entertain you every day. Stay up to date with the latest news and movies.
The body does all the hard work.
Hopefully this will take months out of the process and will get us a vaccine sooner, but again, we're in uncharted territory here.
Now, usually a vaccine takes up to 10 or even 15 years to test, manufacture, and distribute, if a vaccine candidate even makes it that far. But we don't have that kind of time.
Dozens of laboratories are now battlegrounds in the race for a vaccine.
Labs around the world got to work as soon as a Chinese scientist published the virus's genetic sequence in January.
We've been working on this with all cylinders.
We're kind of writing the playbook as the game is being played.
It's a game with high stakes. Governments, public institutions, philanthropists, they're all involved. Private companies in places like the US, China, and Germany, they're all competing. But some researchers are also working together on open platforms.
We haven't seen such an acceleration in sharing information and sharing data.
To give you an idea of how fast things are moving, it took 7 months to start human trials during the Zika epidemic. That was a record. For this new coronavirus, it took just 63 days. But testing on people is just one step.
The manufacturing, I think, is going to be the real challenge, and we need to make sure that we're ramping that up right now alongside of the clinical trials that are underway.
Based on most estimates, we could get a new vaccine sometime early next year. But it'll take longer for it to get to millions of people. One of the vaccine makers, Johnson & Johnson, says that won't happen before late next year. And there's going to be a bottleneck. So who gets it first? During the H1N1 swine flu in 2009, one of the first vaccines was made in Australia. The government was criticized for making sure it went to Australians first. The concern this time around is that countries will want to do the same thing again. And there's reason for that concern.
President Trump has been accused of trying to lure a German pharmaceutical company working on a coronavirus vaccine to the US. German authorities insist that no country should have a monopoly and is offering its own financial incentives for the vaccine to stay in the country.
Right now, there is no international body to police distribution of a vaccine. Not even the WHO has that power, nor is there a global plan for a coordinated rollout. Groups like the Gavi Vaccine Alliance and CEPI, though, are working to get vaccines to developing countries. And the WHO has emergency rules in place that were set up during the Ebola epidemic. They say any new vaccine should first go to the people who need it most, like frontline workers.
The front line of the healthcare workers and clearly older and vulnerable populations, that's going to be the first phase. And then wider mass mobilization would happen after that.
There's also pressure on the pharmaceutical industry not to chase big profits. Millions of people need the vaccine, so the demand will be huge, and governments can't afford to pay top dollar. The thing is, vaccines are expensive to make.
In terms of the actual opportunity, it's fairly limited. The margins are typically razor thin. It's very hard to scale the production in any meaningful and profitable way.
SEPI and the Wellcome Trust think it'll cost the industry $3 billion to develop, manufacture, and distribute a vaccine globally.
It might be worthwhile for a private company to make it have a good standing in the public eye to say we're going to do this at a reduced cost. This is a humanitarian thing.
The Gates Foundation is likely going to blow billions of dollars to build production facilities for 7 vaccine candidates, knowing some of those vaccines won't make the grade. The idea is to ensure we're ready to go once a vaccine is found.
We'll make it as cheap as we can, and there's no doubt the money should be found to buy that vaccine for everyone on the planet.
A vaccine is the long-term goal. So right now, scientists are using experimental treatments to help people already sick with COVID-19, like plasma therapy, which involves collecting antibodies from people who've recovered and injecting them into infected patients. They're also trying out drugs in early development or already on the market for other diseases, like the antiviral remdesivir that was developed for Ebola, or hydroxychloroquine used for malaria.
There are many candidate therapeutics or drugs that are showing some promise or potential, but we need to be exceptionally careful. It's extremely important that we rely on the results that are going to come from trials that will tell us how safe and how effective these drugs are.
And then there are the so-called treatments that have raised alarm bells.
I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or?
The idea of injecting disinfectant got lots of laughs online.
I think most people are smart enough to know that they shouldn't be taking medical or public health advice from President Trump. They should be listening to expert opinion.
With every vaccine or drug, there's a calculated risk. With measles, for instance, your chance of dying from the disease is about 1 in 1,000, but the chances of having an adverse reaction to the vaccine are less than 1 in 1,000,000. Any medical response is going to be experimental and might come with side effects because no drug or vaccine has been licensed for this coronavirus. It's new. But we also know that vaccines have saved millions of lives.
I would like to declare 26th October as Smallpox Zero Day.
Mumps, measles, the Asian flu, all those epidemics that killed hundreds of millions of people are nearly all gone now. Experimental vaccines were also used to fight Ebola, and that epidemic has largely been contained. The ultimate goal is to slam the brakes on the virus's ability to spread, and building immunity is key. At the moment, one infected person gives it to roughly 3 other people, who each infect 3 more, and so on. But if we create what's called herd immunity, we can bring that right down. The idea is for about 60% of people to become immune to the coronavirus, either by recovering from it or getting vaccinated. That way, we reduce transmission from one person to just one other person, or less.
The key is to get to 60% as fast as possible. That strain of the virus will now no longer be a threat, and it will go away.
But we aren't there yet, which is why the experts say it'll be a while before life can return to normal.
If we have one-time social distancing, there's a very good chance that a large number of people will remain susceptible to infection. It seems like naturally we're going to enter into this intermittent social distancing period. And in order to reach a high enough level of immunity in the population, our model suggests that it could take into 2022.
It's also worth remembering that until we get those treatments and a vaccine, most of us, around 80%, can rely on our own immune systems to fight the coronavirus. So the general advice is to stay healthy, eat well, sleep well, and exercise, even if you're stuck at home. Because that's where we need to be right now, to protect people who are most at risk. Well...
Thanks for watching Global Movies, your global entertainment. If you like it, please subscribe our channel for latest news and movies.